Every guitar player has goals, and you've got to soul search and figure out what your goals are. And a lot of that's going to depend on what kind of music you like and what you gravitate towards. So you might be into country, you might be into metal, you might be into rhythm and blues, you might be into something else, electronic or whatever. Maybe you're one of those crazy players who likes the microtonal guitars and you want to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Who knows who you are except for you? And you're going to have to lock your goals in to what you want to do when you're playing. And one of the things that I definitely want to stress is that if your goal is to build speed, if your goal is to be a fast player, then ultimately what you have to do is you have to learn the mechanics to make yourself a player that's going to play fast, or a player that's going to play melodic, or a player that's going to play chicken picking, or a player that's going to play hybrid picking, or a player that's going to play mostly tapping and legato and sweep picking. What kind of player do you want to be? And then you have to kind of start locking into what you want to do and who you want to be. A good example is that shape that I've shown across a few lessons here. That shape, again, just in case you haven't seen any of the lessons, it's on the 6th string at 4-5-7, 5th string 4-5-7. Then we get to the 4th and the 3rd strings. We play 4-6-7, 4-6-7. 2nd string and 1st string 5-7-9, 5-7-9. So you got that shape right there. Now it can resolve back to A major, it can resolve back to D Lydian. It can resolve back to several other different modes if we wanted it to. But regardless of what mode you're playing in, the shape's going to stay the same. And then you ask yourself, what kind of player do you want to be, right? If you want to be, and I can't do all these styles, but if you want to be like a sweep picker, right? There's some cool sweeps in there. And they're all within that shape. That one is just 1st string 7-9, or 9-7, or 9-5, sorry. 2nd string is at the 7th fret, so 9, 5, 7, 6. When we get to the 3rd string, 5 on the 4th string, 9, 5 on the 5th string. Then it just goes back through. You want to tap? You can tap the ending notes on all of these. Or you can find the next shape and tap there. Not quite the cleanest one in the world. Let me try that again. Something like that. But you could tap, right? And all I'm doing on the next shape there is I'm tapping at, so if we play the shape, right, we got 4, 5, 7, I'm tapping the 9, 4, 5, 7, tapping the 9, 4, 6, 7, tapping the 9, 4, 6, 7, tapping the 9, 5, 7, 9, tap the 10, 5, 7, 9, tap the 10. Okay? So you got a sweep shape, you got a tapping shape. You could do, as we've already said in previous lessons, you could do just the alternate picking. We could do a kami picking, down, up, down, 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 down, up, down. I could turn a compressor on. I don't have one. And I could do, some of these have open strings, right? So if you look at the 12th fret here, we got 12th fret action on the 1st, the 2nd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. So that means we could do this. but only on those strings. I can't do it on the third string. I could do this. Same shape, but then stuff like this. So, something like, that's where you get into your Stevie Ray Vaughan type stuff, which I know doesn't sound anything like it because I don't play that way, but you get into, you get into the open string stuff. Stuff like that. And of course you get into Iron Maiden stuff with doing things like that as well. And you turn up the gain and get into your, and of course, Eddie Van Halen, Hot for Teacher type stuff, add tapping to that, right? There's all kinds of cool things that you could do when you start getting into the shapes and start playing around with what you want to do. That's the key, is what do you want to do? And it's all buried in there, right? The fretboard is just this big map, and it's all buried in there. If you go ahead and go through the fretboard and look at it note by note and start thinking about how the shapes kind of interlock together and how things can fit, and like that right there, I just mapped out that if I keep going up the scale, I find that right there, right? I have 12th fret, 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Those notes fit in this scale. So I can use those open notes. Not every open note, because I can't use that 3rd fret, but I can use those notes. And by doing that, it allows me to come up with more expressive ways to play. So you've got to experiment with that and think about the scales. That's why it's good to learn one scale shape and then start learning how it locks into the other 7 scale shapes all up and down the fretboard. If you want to understand more about that, I do have a free course out there. I got tons of lessons on this YouTube page, but I got a free course out there at justpickuptheguitarandgo.com where I start showing you how to start seeing not just the one shape, but how it locks into the next shape and the next shape. It uses something called anchor shapes. It allows you to move up and down the fretboard, play in any key, any song, start moving shapes around so you can change the keys. And that's really kind of what's important to all this. So check that out, justpickuptheguitarandgo.com.